Welcome back, my little futuristic shamans, to
What to watch now?
where we talk about what's streaming on Netflix right now. And in today's episode, we are talking about one of my all-time favorite movies. It's up there. I would say it's equivalent to Practical Magic. That's like one of the movies I've probably rewatched more than any other movie. Is The Fifth Element. Oh my god, like in the new updated nutritional pyramid, in between grains and vegetables, there's a teeny tiny sliver and it says The Fifth Element. I mean, it's that crucial that it needs to be one of your favorite movies too. I won't hear it otherwise. I have yet to meet anyone that was like, it wasn't for me. Or, it's alright. No. Suck it, Bladerunner. You wish you were this cool with your inventions. You wish you were this timeless with your fashion statements. Because this movie has everything. It has, it's really funny. It has action, sci-fi. Like I said, it holds up even in 2019. And it has insane replayability. That is one of those magical factors or equations that a lot of people try or strive for, but not many accomplish. And no one's quite figured out the secrets to it, unlike this movie. So Luc Besson, I think, directed it or whatever. Great job, Luc. Good job. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. So this movie has like a lot of reasons I'm pitching to you why you should check it out before we're going to just get into talking the movie as is. One, the characters are so iconic. From someone who's a little more subdued, like Corbin Dallas, to someone who's like just beyond over the top, like Ruby Rhod. Like I said, the fashion statements, I would argue that H&M came out with a Fifth Element inspired fashion line. It would, oh my god, it would sell out. It's so flattering to the body. There's a vibe about it where it feels very 90s and it feels like what the 90s considers futuristic, but there's a lot of rewearability even today. Again, the timeless factor. One of the things I noticed more so in this particular watch than others is the amazing cut back and forth editing style. So there's a lot of scenes in the movies where there's 3 different conversations happening in 3 different areas of the world. And as they go back and forth, it's like different people are answering different people's questions. It adds to the comedy. It's fun. You see how everyone's interwoven, and despite where they are at in their journey, they're all kind of moving forward towards the same goal. Oh, and this is the top one, the technology. A lot of the technology, and then maybe it's just me and I geek out about this type of shit, but I live for when futuristic movies come up with ideas that have a practical function. It just stimulates my creativity, and I liked a lot of their realistic solutions if, in the future when the world is overpopulated, what are we going to do about traffic and flying cars and stuff like that? And this is the one that I'm sure all of you, that stands out the most to you too, is the makeup oriented shit. And I'm not even someone that's like very into makeup, but the secretary for Zorg, her little square box she puts on her nails, that I don't know if you can tell, it's so subtle. That's another thing that's great about this movie. They don't shove it in your face. They have a good idea. It's just kind of in the background. You just kind of accept it. Kind of like Lord of the Rings. It's like, what's that elf doing? Don't worry about it. Just accept it. We're moving on. So she puts a little square box on her white painted nails and it automatically paints it red, and she's just kind of casually doing it. That's amazing. That's genius. Or what's another one? The makeup that Lilu puts on accidentally. It's a makeup box. It says Chanel on the back. So does that mean Chanel sponsored Fifth Element? If so, Chanel, I didn't really take you in as a factor of my life, but I have that much more respect for you. She puts this little box, kind of like a viewfinder, around her eyes, and when she clicks it, it like stamps the makeup already on her face. Do you know how many people would fucking love that? Like if there was a 3-dimensional program where you could go in, pick all your shades, pick out your outfit. Everyone would automatically be like next level with like Photoshop and graphic designing. And all the makeup artists of today, all the beauty gurus, it wouldn't be about your brush technique or whatever palette you owned. You would just be in your software, your makeup software specifically for this, picking out your eyeshadow. And then in just one click, you go boop and stamp it on. And if we want to get like more futuristic here, wouldn't it be cool if your favorite beauty gurus, instead of just simply taking a photo on Instagram and showing you the way they looked, they could upload, you could like download their makeup look and then stamp it on your face. That would take the whole idea of admiring someone's abilities and techniques to the next level. You could truly embody what they've created. And it would go beyond just simply like blue eyeshadow. I think the makeup in my eyes would get crazier and crazier. Okay, so like I said, love this damn movie. Let's get into it. Great background story, by the way. Love the whole way it goes about doing it. Like the whole good versus evil thing. So we start off in Egypt, 1914. Which I like how we went back far enough where technology was just kind of beginning to grow in America at a faster rate to then 300 years in the future when it's like next level. I think I read some article a couple years ago where they say the growth rate of technology percentage-wise grows so dramatically every year. So maybe in other fields like medicine, stuff like that, it only grows maybe by like 10% each year. But for technology, whatever growth has existed, it will be like 300% of that. But then every year, so you can see the dramatic effects of that. We just got to get to that alien technology. Going forward, so it's 1914 and it's in Egypt, and we have an archaeologist going over what he's found, some hieroglyphics, and he's kind of breaking down what we'll know in the whole movie's lore. So we have 4 elements, and then we have a 5th element in the center. Ooh, and this element looks like a person. Meanwhile, though, we got Luc Perry randomly in the background. Just want to point this out. Luc Perry is credited in the first part of the movie, like beginning credits. He's like one of the first names you see. And he has such a tiny role. It's like crazy. I don't know if they do that so often anymore. Like they'll mention, like, guess what? Harry Styles is in this movie. But it's interesting how Hollywood's a little different. Like they still use names to sell a movie, but they are kind of like, honey, you haven't earned it. And maybe they'll put his name a little bit further back because it is just his first movie and he does just have a small part. But in this, I'm assuming Luc Perry was probably just coming off 90210. And he did a great job. And also R.I.P. Luc Perry. I'm so sorry you've passed away in unfortunate situations. But is dying ever really fortunate? Anyways, so Luc Perry is in the background. Love the whole comedic effect. You really get a vibe of what it's like. This is how you know it's a great movie. You're lost in their world, even though it's just 10 minutes. You're totally captivated by these characters, and by the time they take it away, you've already been sucked in. So we have Luc Perry in the background as Billy, and he's making fun of every time the person he's studying under is yelling at this little boy Aziz, because the little Aziz keeps falling asleep and moving the mirror from falling asleep, and he goes, Aziz, light! So he's moving the little mirror to get light again. Meanwhile, we have a shaman, or a priest, whatever you want to call him. And he is planning to murder Billy and the archaeologist because he is meant to keep these secrets secret. But then, amazing turn of events, aliens show up. Aliens in the craziest, like, weird donut outfits. That's what I'm talking about. They have, like, mad Dark Crystal vibes. Like, if the Dark Crystal world had to be made futuristic. Do you see what I'm saying? Where it's like, it's clunky, it's a little bit puppeteering, but there's something so natural about their organic, simultaneous, geometric design that still holds up even to this day. There's something very charming about it. Anyways, these aliens are really interesting. I mean, they don't even murder anybody. I don't think they even murdered the archaeologist. I think they just put him to sleep, so to speak. But they come in, they start talking. Clearly, they have respect for the priest. And the word is that the priest and this alien have been making this deal that he's been protecting this Egyptian vault. They show up and they take these stones. They say it's not safe on Earth anymore. And the priest makes a good point, by the way. He says, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to protect ourselves? And the reality is these stones are protection for everyone. The Earth having them doesn't mean anything. When they are used anywhere, I know they're used at this particular temple, but the idea is that it's saving everyone. It's not just the Earth. And they're like, listen, someone found out our secret. We just got to take him and move him for now, but do not worry, we're coming back. If if you guys die, we're all dying. So don't worry, we're coming back in 300 years. And we get this dramatic moment when Billy it's one of those moments where you're like equally frustrated as the priest is, going like, Billy, you don't understand. They're trying to protect us. Please don't hurt them. And unfortunately, Billy triggers these giant sand doors that close and kill the priest. Not the priest, I'm so sorry, the alien. What's so interesting about this moment is you really get an insight of how evolved and next level these beings are. And in the future, we learn that not all aliens and other creatures are like this at all. Like, these people truly are next level with their enlightenment. I mean, he literally gets smushed to death, and the alien couldn't give two shits. All he cares about is his ultimate goal. All he cares about is life and this path. So the priest is left with a special key that he will continue to pass down, and he will continue to pass his knowledge down. My boyfriend and I had a whole discussion about this, by the way. We were discussing what it would take to keep convincing the next person who studies under you that this is real, that they need to know this language nobody else knows, know this information nobody else will use. They will make no money from it. They will get no glory. It's a complete secretive thing. It's not even a secret society. That's the goal for a lot of people who are in secret societies. It's this exciting thing to be a part of a club and get advantages from it. You're having all the disadvantages in the world, to be honest with you, knowing this. And then be able to continue to pass that along long enough to reach because apparently this happens every 5,000 years. And one of the most important things you need to know about that moment is there could have been priests along the way that are like, what am I doing? This seems ridiculous, especially in 1914 where the idea of aliens was not a popular concept. I think they were, I could be wrong, but I think in history, people were exploring the ideas of aliens like a long time ago, during the time of like Plato and stuff like that. So people were interested. Those ideas were out there. There was a bit of proof, but it still wasn't widely known or spoken about, or some people never even thought about it in 1914 as a possible idea. Anyway, going forward, then we get to go to modern day. And we have this whole military operations. And this is so cool. I love connecting actors that have previously worked together in films. Bruce Willis is in this as Corbin Dallas. But Tommy, a.k.a. Tiny Lister. Ew, Tiny Lister sounds gross. We'll call him Tommy Lister. Tommy, a.k.a. Marcellus Willis from Pulp Fiction, plays President Lindbergh. So Bruce Willis and Tommy were both in Pulp Fiction. Isn't that cool? Two very iconic roles and movies. So we're with President Lindbergh, and he is being informed about some weird, ambiguous shape that has come into existence out of nowhere, right in front of one of his spaceships. And so they kind of deal with it the way most military operations would in this kind of goofy movie, where they just shoot at it. But this is where it gets crazy. Every time they shoot at it, and I didn't pick this up in the other times I watched it, you just don't take in the full lore of it. Every time they shoot something at it, it absorbs it and grows. It's like you're giving it energy, and that is what gives it power. It becomes stronger. It can create this like crustaceous mold over it. There's even a discussion of it being sentient and protecting itself, which is weird. I mean, I think there's a fear factor in that idea alone, because it's a freaky idea of anything having sentience, but what is scarier is this big, almost planet-sized thing. And because we're not familiar with something so big, doesn't have arms, it kind of stretches your imagination to that fear factor level. Like, you know, when you see a horror movie and when you're afraid of the dark, it's not so much what you think like is there, it's where your brain takes it. It makes it so much worse, so much over the top and abstract. So they're trying to shoot this planet, and it just kind of totally backfires and even kills one of their fleets. So they already have it, like, the fear factor is there. They understand there's no like, I don't know if it exists, or you know, you're talking a lot of shit, priest. No, they are totally on board with the idea of it, and they are trying to handle this problem that they can tell is going to continue. Now that they see that it's going to absorb all of their missiles and it is only growing, kind of a problem for everyone else in the universe. Then we get introduced to Corbin Dallas. Oh, love the way they introduce him. We get a beautiful, like, very quick flash of... Can you even imagine, by the way, they made this beautiful, what I would call the equivalent of, like, a Tokyo-style apartment. You know how in, like, Japan and Korea, they have these, like, micro apartments because it's just so crowded and expensive. Sometimes it's a cheaper option they make available, which I wish they made more of an available option in America because, like, I know everyone wants their space, but a lot of people are fucking broke. And some people I've heard in Korea have like a little apartment of their own, very small, like a closet, but it's like $500. And some people are in a place in their life, well, I would say a lot of people, especially college students and stuff like that, where they're like, we'll take anything, just want a place to call home. And that includes people, like, of all regards who aren't making as much money. And let's be real, that's a lot of us. So, he's living in this little tiny futuristic apartment. And we get a flash of, like, an aquarium. We get kind of little gadgets in the background. And I was thinking about how some people might have worked all day, come up with this entire concept to mock a futuristic invention, and you see it for a second. You barely get to know what it does or what it's used for. It doesn't feel like people just put up, sorry, Star Wars fans, it doesn't feel like a bunch of random buttons are put everywhere just for the effect to seem grand. It feels like if I got to explore that set, I could start to easily unravel its mysteries, and everything really does have a purpose. I can't even imagine how much money that took. We get to see his adorable little cross-eyed white cat. Love that cat. We see him feeling frustrated and tired in the morning. We can see by the background of his awards and his hat that mimics the military berets of what we just saw with the president, that he had some sort of military background, but he doesn't do that anymore. He drives a cab. And may I add, in this little moment, he's trying to quit smoking, right? This is, again, a little cool invention. If you notice, their cigarettes in the future have these really long filters, but not because of cute design. It's the way they're in the future. It's how you can quit smoking, that you get a longer filter, and your brain probably sees it as like you're absorbing the whole cigarette, you're getting more cigarette. But if you notice, the actual white part of the cigarette, the nicotine, all the poison in itself, is so tiny. So I imagine as you're smoking, the like white part of the cigarette gets comically like tinier and tinier and tinier. I mean, we even get a moment where Ruby Rod is smoking a cigarette himself, and he also has a tiny one, and he too comments that he's trying to quit smoking. So I guess in the future, that's how they deal with the problem. By the way, while all of this is happening, we get an introduction to the top of the line, amazing soundtrack. I would say it varies in the soundtrack what vibe you're getting, from like operatic to like Hawaiian traditional singing, but a common song choice they use, I feel like they got the composer of the Rugrats show. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go listen to like the theme song and a lot of the background noise. It's very kooky. It's very, it has specific instruments that I didn't feel were that unsimilar. Like, I felt were similar to The Fifth Element. It's like they took the composers from the Rugrats show and they just were like, make it dark and 9 Inch Nails. So you have this amazing soundtrack, and Corbin Dallas is being introduced, and he's in his little cute orange tank top. He's tired of the day. He's getting nagged on by his mom. He's getting nagged on by someone who he owes money, clearly, or works for. Kind of a little bit nefarious feeling. And how does he start his day? He gets held up by a crackhead, a futuristic crackhead. I loved that the crackhead had like a genius idea. Somehow he made his way to Kinko's, and he like, took a line of his crack, whatever the term would be. He took a puff, whatever, and he figured out the copy and print machine, and he made somehow a perspective that not only was the wall the background story of this apartment complex, but was able to mimic what it would look like through a viewfinder where it's all warped. So this man is like a very high functioning crackhead. So he's got his little hat on his head to mimic the hallway. So that's why Corbin Dallas opens the door. And when he opens the door, he sees that he's got the little hat on, and the guy is freaking out, and he has a gun, but he doesn't know how to use it. This is when we kind of get a great... I always talk about amazing introductions that already set the tone of what the character's like. He has a gun to his head, and he's so chill about it. He's almost a little bit flirtatious and sultry about it. He's so calm. And he's able to handle high intense stress situations even if a gun's being held in his face. In fact, there are many situations in this movie where a gun's being held to his face and he kind of keeps it cool, but not in a like snarky Indiana Jones kind of way or James Bond type of way. Just kind of like a live or die, whatever. He couldn't give a shit. Either way, he's just gonna kind of hang out with his cat and then, walk away. Now that we have Corbin Dallas established, we go back to the military base, and the current day priest, Cornelius, also aka Bilbo Baggins, which again, I love all these little like, oh my god, there's Bilbo, there's Marcellus Wallace. He's catching the military up to speed with the whole every 5,000 years, this ambiguous evil shows up wanting to destroy everyone, and there's no possible way you can destroy it except with this weapon called the Fifth Element. And the people that protect over the Fifth Element is this alien species called the Mono da Shan. Interestingly enough, the universe is so big, and I kind of get the idea that in this world, because they expand off of living off just Earth, they know a lot of different aliens and different species, so on and so forth. So it's kind of like, would this be the equivalence of like, I don't know what this would be the equivalence of, but like like the fact that the Earth and the human species has been alive this long and we still don't know these aliens, like a common knowledge. I don't know, it shows how like old school and, ancient they are or whatever. So, comforting the president with this knowledge, right at that exact moment, the Mondoshan show up and are requesting to come into their orbital space and give them the Fifth Element. And he's like, oh, perfect, convenient, come on in. But unfortunately, while they might have a weapon of mass destruction, they are not great with hand-to-hand combat or close range, whatever you want to call it, because they get attacked by the aliens I'm going to continue to refer to as the Butt Faces. I know they have an actual name, but they are the Butt Faces to me. So the Butt Faces show up and destroy the Mondoshan, their Fifth Element, everything. Poor Cornelius looks super torn up about it. He's just like, well, fuck, we're doomed. Can you imagine, again, we talked about how the idea of how many thousands of years, how many priests lived and died to obtain and then pass along this knowledge. I'm sure Cornelius was so pumped that he was going to be the priest during the time the Mondoshan would show up, and he would get to experience this thing he'd been told about for generations, and in an instant, it's just like, well, that's not happening anymore. But he gets kind of unpolitely excused out of the room because they're like, okay, well, we're handling it from here. Meanwhile, he's like, no, but like, you don't understand. Like, I have all the information. I'm your only contact. I'm the Earth's contact for these aliens. And after he gets excused out of the room, they come to the president and they're like, listen, we've got like a little hand. We've got a little sample size that we can use to revive them. Because remember, this is the future. And that's, by the way, can anyone truly die in this future? Do you really need to quit smoking? If we can, like, revitalize a whole human, can we, like, build you some new lungs? Or is this only special government technology and it's so powerful, so expensive that it really is only saved for these occasions? That kind of makes a lot more sense, which I could understand. Now, this is probably one of the only plot holes that really stuck out to me in this moment. And keep in mind, it's not one of those plot holes that's going to ruin the movie. I don't even give a shit that I noticed it, but it's just a question I have. We get this cool moment when they rebuild the Fifth Element, aka what we will later know as Lilu. And when they are doing this, we get some important information. It's really cool. One, they say apparently the average human being has 40 DNA memo groups. Don't know if that's the real term or just like the fake scientific term they're using in this, but 40 DNA memo groups. But this hand alone has 200,000 DNA groups. And when they show a picture of a regular human spiral DNA chrome, they show that this creature's DNA is like one wrapped over the other. Kind of makes you wonder if they would have any like exciting properties. Like, what does that actually mean? Can they heal very quickly? What's the deal? What's the benefit of this? Are they just incredibly talented? Maybe it's so that they're able to withstand the power that they can emanate. Maybe that's what it is. But either way, the loophole, or not the loophole, the plot hole that's happening right here is as they rebuild the person, they have a hand, and this hand is in armor. It's holding a handle, probably the handle the aliens used when they were trying to blast out of there and get away from the quote-unquote butt faces. But the thing is, in the very beginning, we saw a sarcophagus with the face pointed upwards. That's an important little detail you have to pay attention to. So they said the fifth element was sleeping, would have been in this sarcophagus. But here we have an alien's hand in armor, as if this creature was one of the Mondoshan with them in battle on their way over. And in addition to that, we even have a moment with Lilu where she's remembering being attacked. So it's kind of insinuating that she was one of the Mondoshan in the actual spacecraft hanging over in armor. So it's a little bit of a plot hole problem, but who gives a shit? Because the rebuilding scene of her body is so sick. How they're adding bones by individual slices. It's like taking the three-dimensional form and making it 2D. It's like, have you ever seen those cool coasters on Amazon where it's the human brain and it's different parts of the human brain if it was sliced vertically, and if you put them all together it looks like a three-dimensional form of a brain? You should go get those coasters. I'm just saying, if you like this scene. Actually, that's a really good idea for like a party trick or not a party trick, but like if you were going to decorate for a Fifth Element party. So they rebuild her and she is described as perfect. We get a little bit of ooh, she's so perfect because she's so beautiful, and she's in this like cool bondage outfit. She's got that like crazy iconic dread-like orange hair with blonde roots, may I add. I can't even imagine the dye job. Hopefully it was a wig. Probably was not a wig at that time. But she's speaking this insane, awesome, creative, made-up language she made up on her own. The actress herself, I'm pretty sure, made it up. Milla Jovovich, who you actually more know probably from the Resident Evil franchise movies, but she kills it. Screaming, talking, freaking out as if you had just been born, trying to understand your settings. Your eyes are just starting to form, being currently electrocuted to come alive. It's really captivating. She's an amazing actress in these scenes. But when she is challenged and mocked by the military general, she punches through unbreakable glass, smashes his head in, gets out of there successfully, and jumps through a tube. I love she has no care or concern about police force tasks. She doesn't care. She understands she's being attacked and she needs to get away, because as far as she's concerned, she just needs to find the priest. That's all she cares about. She doesn't even think there's never a question in her mind, I don't get, that she's being attacked by people she could mistake for the evil mass blob. Keep in mind, she's been sleeping for 5,000 years. She's missed a lot about humans. I'm sure none of this makes any sense to her. I kind of get the vibe that she pops out every 5,000 years, does her job, she goes back to sleep. You'd think she would be more animalistic. She's animalistic in this moment, surviving like anyone would, but she's actually quite she's got a good etiquette about her. She's maybe in that DNA she's got some manners and civility about her. Anyways, this is when we get the iconic cab scene, because as she's trying to run away and she literally jumps from a building, she is hardcore. She swan dives it into, by pure coincidence, Corbin Dallas's taxi he's driving. And There are so many scenes where the police and him have to drive straight down through layers upon layers of horizontal, vertical, and you could say even fourth dimensional version of traffic. Again, a very creative solution to dealing with an overpopulation problem. Once you got flying cars, you can have multiple lanes over different heights. You can have the X, Y, and Z axis all being filled up with traffic just to make it not so clogged and congested. And by some miracle, nobody smashes into a car and dies and cause. I can't even imagine, not to like trigger anyone, but like car accidents. Like, you don't just bump into someone's rear. Like, you fall out of the sky. That, you know what's so funny? You know how when you're going through a tough time and you can't like fix certain things in your car, and so you're just like, well, I will just drive it until it breaks down. I don't imagine anyone in this futuristic setting allows that to happen, or they will die. They will literally fall out of the sky if their engine stop is working. Either way, Corbin Dallas ends up saving Lulu. There is a moment, though, where he does almost give her up, and I can understand. He's like, honey, you're cute, but like, I don't know who you are. I'm just a normal person. I'm going through my own shit in life. By the way, I kind of liked the idea that he was no longer in the military and he had all these awards, but he was working a crappy job. Doesn't that happen a lot? Like, it's fucked up. Like, people go in the military, they work hard, they give their life, and then they come back to many situations where they have to work, like, sometimes often a not very well paying job. So it kind of made sense that he was like, and we don't know how he left the military. He could have left on negative terms, so it didn't set him up financially in some way. But I don't think even if you leave in negative terms, you can lose your stipend. So, but whatever. The point being is it felt realistic even in the future. So he ends up changing his mind, goes through a whole chase scene, and he saves her. It's great. She's screaming her crazy language. As he's driving down spirally, she's on the window, and she basically almost seems like she's passed out or dead at that point. So he ends up hearing about her talk about some priest at some point. She was asking for that, and he delivers her kind of unconscious body to the priest. So great when Cornelius, Corbin, and Lulu are all together. Really beautiful. It's like, yay, the team, we're together! But not for long, because Cornelius initially thinks that they're some married couple or whatever, and he's like, you can go. It's like, no, Cornelius, you're so close. Don't ruin it for yourself. And he's able to show him the tattoo. He immediately hears there's some tattoo and, realizes who she is. We get a cute little moment where he's like looking for his best robe to he wants to look his very best, understandably. And she is so excited to see him. And Cornelius kind of rushes Corbin Dallas out of the situation. And honestly, in that moment, it seems like he's kicked out. Because he almost kisses her. She gets fucking pissed. Even though they have a cute little introduction. Again, had a gun held to his head. But Cornelius is like, we don't need you anymore. Bye! And they end up talking to each other because he's the only person that knows her divine language. And they start getting acquainted with each other. But we have not introduced all the characters. Now, this is like so important because you need to understand how everyone's connected to understand why so many people in the end are going to be chasing after their stones and their different motivations. So the butt faces go to deliver what they think is this box of stones that the Mondoshan had, that they were going to bring into the field space with the fifth element that the butt faces took. But the butt faces didn't just take them willy-nilly or have even a personal vendetta for them. They were accomplishing this goal for someone else. This is when we get Gary Oldman in one of the best, craziest costumes ever. He's got a limp with like cowboy shoes, it sounds like, with spurs on the end, the way it jingles. He's got half his head shaved with kind of a Devo black long hair flip perfectly smoothed. And because he's over the top, he puts this little plastic cap over his hair, which I gotta be honest with you, if you're gonna go next level with your toupee, go clear. Go plastic. Makes perfect sense to me. Anyways, this guy is evil as fuck. And he goes through this whole demonstration of these very cute, cool, futuristic guns that he's going to exchange for these particular stones. But this is when we talk about the whole back and forth element. We get Lilu, who's trying to take in information at an incredibly rapid speed. Again, I guess this is the benefit of her very advanced DNA. She can take in information. She can speed read like nobody else. Watch out, book club. And she's taking in information about what she's missed over the last 5,000 years while she's telling the priest and his understudy, his very nervous understudy, about like the situation with the stones. So after Gary Oldman's character Zorg is like, okay, butt faces, I will give you these guns for these stones. When he goes to open the case, we get a cute little iconic image of Lilu just laughing her head off because apparently the stones were never in there. It was a trick. They were prepared for any sort of trap. They are not dumb. And what they are trying to do is, or Lilu, sorry, I'm getting tripped over my words. Lilu is like, listen, the stones aren't there. They're hidden somewhere else specifically. They trusted the stones with someone else. Apparently, the Mandoshan are incredibly intelligent because they didn't trust Earth, then they didn't trust themselves, so they could only give it to some random other person. They're not dumb. They understand how things change. And honestly, the best thing you can do and the best way to keep anything hidden is to keep moving it. That actually makes complete sense to me. And Zorg is pissed. So he gets into a disagreement with the buttfaces and he tricks them into basically self-imploding themselves. So now we've got this basic setup that we have the priest who wants the stones with the fifth element. We have Zorg who wants the stones. Now, quick background story, you're like, why does he want the stones? Turns out that this blobby planet that exists is sentient. At one point, it even sucks in satellites. I didn't pick that up when I was younger, but he sucks, the sentient weird blob sucks in satellites to make a call. They even make a joke, like, how could a planet make a call? He makes a call. And his name is Shadow. Ooh. Not similar or related to Shadow from American Gods. Totally different little sweetheart. He's not related to him. So he basically, this planet is promising enormous amounts of money and even fear to Zorg if he gets these stones from him. So Zorg is kind of like his little minion. So we have Zorg trying to get the stones, but the butt faces are incredibly pissed off. They're stupid and dumb. There's even a great line about Zorg telling his PA, you could call him, that they only fight for honor, but the only thing honor did was kill a lot of people. And so when they were tricked by the guns and were imploded themselves, some survived, and as revenge, they want the stones just for negotiations because they're pissed off, revenge. So we kind of have a couple of different parties going on. Then we go back to Corbin, because basically what happened during that time period, he went on with his life. He's like, well, fuck, I'm definitely going to lose my job with the taxis. We get to see his mom, like, chewing him out. Things aren't great. I mean, we even get the cool setup. Again, I always like to focus on the future. We get I don't know how to describe it, a floating boat ship for, I don't know what, I guess I'm assuming a Chinese restaurant. And they literally fly to your window of your apartment and will cook and feed you right there. It's like next level Grubhub or Postmates. I mean, would that not be so sick? I don't know how the guy's making a lot of money, because I imagine jet fuel is quite expensive and Chinese food tends to be rather affordable. So there's got to be some minimum. Like, you've got to buy $300 worth of food, because otherwise I'm not making any money only feeding you for this hour. But he tries to cheer him up and argue that, bad luck isn't continuous. But even he gets fired from his cab job. So he's got all these things against him. He's still thinking about the girl, and he gets approached by the military. The military wants him to go on this special trip to get the stone. So now Corbin's a part of the whole stone situation. Normally, I do not like those dumb scenes where it's like, you've got to hide in a closet here, and oh my god, stressfully someone else shows up to the door, now you've got to hide here, and how does the main protagonist keep everyone from... It's not like that at all. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. We even get little small, again, sneak peeks into inventions where, like, his bed pulls out like a drawer and has a plastic covering on it, I guess to keep out bugs or whatever, because in this futuristic world, there's even bugs in the underbellies of planes. They they have to flame out. Which, by the way, holding an open flame to a jet-filled, nuclear-powered spaceship, doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever, we're just gonna go with that. And at one point, the military shows that they've rigged this contest and they want to give him this opportunity with the stones. He's not really for it initially, and he's just like, I'll consider it, whatever. Hides them in the freezer and tells this lie when he sees that Lilo's at his door. By the way, this is a little subtle thing I only noticed in this viewing. Considering how many times I've watched this movie, it's crazy. But Lilu takes his little nameplate that says Corbin Dallas and she removes it. And then, I am assuming, she moves it somewhere else. Why would she do that if she wasn't somehow aware or like sentient? I don't think she just did that out of stupidity. She doesn't do anything out of stupidity. She's very awed and amazed by this new world she's in, but she's learning very fast. So this is a very small way she looks after him. She comes in with the priest, and they want to get their hands on the fixed contest tickets he has, because everyone is trying to get to the specific cruise ship that so happens to have the stones. And in that exact moment, he has to hide the priest in the bed and her in the shower because a third party has come. People are trying to specifically look for Corbin Dallas. When they get to his apartment building, they notice he has no name, and they ask him to put up his hands. They think maybe it could be him. They're actually specifically looking for Corbin Dallas. In that moment, I thought they were looking for him, honestly, because it's like, well, that makes sense. He took Lilo away from the government. Wouldn't they be looking for him? But what happens is they put the name tag. Lilo had put the name tag in someone else's thing. And when the military was like, put your hands on the yellow circles, again, this is all a very creative way of like not fully invading your privacy, but being able to get information very quickly when they're looking for criminals and stuff like that. The guy basically tells them to fuck off. Remember, they're in the rough part of the futuristic world, southern Brooklyn. And when that happens, they end up shooting him with a net. Again, love the way they deal with everything. It's so weird. It weirdly makes sense. I get the logic and the thinking about it. And he ends up getting taken. We learn that the only reason why they were looking for Corbin Dallas is Zorg, again, looking for the stones, called in to set him up for a fake drug-related crime, so that he was out of the picture so they can get to the contest. So everyone's trying to get the contest tickets, everyone's trying to sign up, everyone's trying to get to that cruise to the to get to the stones and go undercover, make it very low key. Otherwise people might get suspicious and it becomes a bigger deal than it needs to be. Very secret agent shit. So Corbin Dallas gets unbeknownst to him saved by Lilu, and he pulls out Lilu from the shower, has a cute little auto wash, sweet, sensual moment with her. And we get another joke about her being quote unquote perfect. Because remember, she doesn't give a shit. She's just taking off her clothes. She has no reason to feel embarrassment, shame, or even understand what the human body is. But the priest pulls a fast one and hits him in the head and steals the tickets. So he ends up taking the job, Corbin does, because now he's motivated by Lilu, this girl he likes. And now we get the huge, big setup rundown on the cruise ship itself. Oh, this is where it gets good. It was good up to now, but this is where it gets motherfucking good. The reason why I pointed out all those little specific details, because like I said, this movie's so good. And if a movie's good, there's not a lot you can skim over. Okay, we have a couple people trying to show up on the cruise ship. Now, successfully, Corbin manhandles the younger priest mentor out of the way, and he successfully gets on the ship with Lilu, which works to his factor, because not only does he have no problem with saving the world, that definitely is his goal. He's not trying to have specifically a vacation with Lilu. He also is excited because he gets to be with this girl who's really captivated him. So him and Lilu get on the ship. The priest, the older one, Cornelius, smuggles himself on the ship. But we have a couple other people trying to pretend they're Corbin Dallas. Everyone's trying to pretend to be the Corbin Dallas to get those tickets and get on the ship. We have two cool as hell, weird looking, futuristic members. The girl with the fucking see-through lime green skirt and like thong, I'm like, whoa girl, confident. When they are trying to steal Corbin Dallas's identity, if you notice, I always thought that the butt-faced aliens were just pretending to look like anyone, but they in fact were trying to look like what they thought was Corbin Dallas. I hope he's alive. The very spicy, very, upset man from Corbin Dallas's block who got taken, who they thought was him. They basically used his identity they're trying to mimic him, basically. Does that make sense? I feel like I made that so much more confusing than it needs to be. And unfortunately, his face is going to, like, explode because he's not able to keep the alien trick very quickly. And they get reported to the police. The poor girl is terrified out of her mind. And we also have Zorg's understudy who tries to get it, but unfortunately, when he doesn't successfully get on, he gets blown up. Because let's be real, a man that level of insane you're not safe under him. By the way, this is all two things I want to point out that I forgot to mention up to this point because I'm just kind of like doing a one take conversational ramble with these podcasts. Is one, all of the service people tend to be females, and if they are females, they are very attractive and they have these really cool kind of sexy outfits. Now, what's so interesting about this is it doesn't stick out to you. It kind of doesn't feel, how do I express this? When you watch a movie and everyone's a little too pretty, it's like distracting. It's like, really? That's the local guy that works at the gas station and he's just never found anyone. No one's ever been interested in him. The reason why this kind of sits in the background a little more smoothly to me, and I think we subconsciously accept this, is so everybody is all about like sex and beauty, and I would say especially at the time when this movie was being made, it was becoming like the whole idea of hypersexuality being thrown in your face was becoming more and more prevalent before it kind of like chilled out a little bit. And that does make sense that if we're going to keep moving in that futuristic idea, companies would want to associate themselves with that. It makes sense that they would go out of their way. Maybe they go out of their way to hire these beauties, and these beauties are being paid pretty well. It just makes sense to me. It's just a little subtle idea in the background because, again, this movie is not only about cool inventions, it's about talking about the evolution of ideas now, especially at the time when this movie was being made. The other thing I forgot to mention that I kind of, again, this is so much information being thrown at you, is before this whole thing happened, where everyone's on the cruise ship and they're moving their way there, there's an interesting, 6 degrees to Zorg, where Cornelius and Zorg have a conversation about the zones. Again, really funny that when Zorg's men come to pick up Cornelius, they were so close to the fifth element, which they don't care about the fifth element, but, I mean, Shadow, Zorg's boss would. He would definitely want that. And when they have a conversation between the two each other, Zorg and Cornelius, he tries to say that they are very similar. And Cornelius is like, we're not similar. You're all about chaos, destruction. I am for life and good. And he shows this whole little thing where he breaks a glass and all his little robots come out. And he makes a point. And to be fair, he makes a really good point in that moment with his little cute demonstration that, like, look, everybody has a job. Everyone's benefiting from this thing you say is so bad. So do we really want to take away all these little opportunities for people by just blanketly being good all the time? Not enough of a good argument, but you hear what I'm saying. Then, by pure fate and chaos alone, the randomness of it all, Zorg starts choking on a cherry. And Cornelius takes a long time before he gives him the Heimlich maneuver. And he basically makes a point of being like, look at all this stuff, though, that you're depending on. All this quote-unquote opportunity. None of it's really saving you. I think he was making more of a point about technology over humankind than the idea of destruction and chaos. But his point was still valid of being like, so what if you died and these opportunities were made? Would it be okay then? Now that you're the victim dying and it makes it better for everybody else? and he saves him, and Zorg spares him in that moment. But again, they were so close. He was so close to getting Zorg, and vice versa. So now we're all on the ship. Everyone's heading to the ship, and so on and so forth. And the ship is gorgeous, very operatic. They have a house, a specific opera house that was recreated, but the whole place is very operatic with big, long walls and lots of gold inlay. It's super beautiful. I thought it was kind of funny, by the way, that Corbin Dallas had a better room than the diva. I'm like, isn't she like the royal talent? Isn't she the celebrity that you're supposed to be giving the VIP penthouse room? But anyway, Corbin Dallas gets on the ship and gets separated from Lilu because she's being cute and she's going out and investigating and everything like that. And this is when, oh my god, I mean, I wouldn't want a showdown without the one and only Ruby Rhod. This is probably Chris Tucker's, like, most over-the-top performance. By the way, by, like, some weird fate of the universe, I don't know what it is. I am, like, psychically connected movies because I'll watch a movie and then some obscure character will show up in an episode of a random show I'm watching out of nowhere. Or example, right now, I had planned to do The Fifth Element yesterday, and I'm doing it today, whatever. And right at that moment, there's like a picture that came out with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker holding up a 4, implying that they might be doing a Rush Hour 4. They're most likely doing a Rush Hour 4, which I'm like, fuck yes, love Rush Hour. But most importantly, just a weird turn of events. Anyways, so Ruby Rhod, if you get nothing from this movie, only focus in on Ruby Rhod. Everybody else, great outfits, great ideas, great comedy. You don't need anyone else. You just need Ruby Rhod. He is this crazy, insane, over-the-top, fast-talking, like, I'm not going to do it any justice, but go look up the scene when you first get introduced to Ruby Rhod. He's got this crazy, open-necked, like, I don't know how to describe it, Dracula romper. Like, I know it's like a big deal now that men wear rompers. It's like a whole thing. Like, oh my god, men wearing rompers. It's so hip and fashion. No, honey. Ruby Rhod made it up. He was the first. He was wearing his Dracula-inspired romper with his, like, crazy... It's like a 1950s afro, like, you know where they do the little swirl in the front? But he literally elongated that. You could compare it to phallic body parts, but I'm going to go with a cool 1950s haircut. And he's going over the top and saying this line in a giant cane-like mic. By the way, I love the part where he's like over the top, all this energy, and then he'll get to Corbin Dallas, and there's this intense echo and just a deep voice saying one note. And when he's doing this line, all I could think is, you know how kids, when they are, they're trying to get into school or they're showing their acting abilities in class, they'll do some sort of monologue to show what they're about. I'm sure most people like to focus on things that seem heartfelt or involve crying of some sort. And I'm sitting here being like, who's doing motherfucking Ruby Rhod? If you could do this character's introductionary monologue, I think you've kind of basically set the bar. Everyone should be cowering in fear of your talent. Anyways, Ruby Rhod tries to establish some type of dominance with Corbin, but unfortunately literally gets held up by his neck and strangled and told, like, no, this is how it's gonna be. We're not having a discussion in the manner. You do your thing, I will do mine. I'm putting up an act, and Ruby Rhod is like, he's so funny. Another thing, his posse with all the matching outfits. I imagine it's a lot of intense drama whenever he picks out an outfit, because then everyone else has to coordinate with him. He also rocks another amazing outfit when they go to the opera scene, and he's got like these Spice Girl buns with another romper-styled open-neck Dracula outfit with roses all around him. I gotta tell you, I kind of would just wear that, like, to the grocery store. I'm being honest. I would consider it. I would totally rock it. And I wouldn't bat an eye. I wouldn't even bring up my outfit. There'd be no discussion about it. I would just wear that to the grocery store or anywhere. So this is like the big dealio. We got the stones. We have all these people going to the cruise ship for various reasons. Some people smuggling on. Some people tricking facilities into saying they have damaged, repaired ship, which that's what Zorg uses. Some people sneaking on and pretending to be part of the waitstaff, the butt faces, and so on and so forth, trying to get to the ship, but nobody knows where the stones are. They're assuming it's, they don't even know what they look like, to be honest with you, if they did get them. You could probably give them 4 rocks and be like, those are the stones, but they assume it's in some sort of a box. We get just a sneak peek of a little bit of an information that apparently the person they trusted as their liaison was this diva. I love that they called her a diva. Her name was, I can't remember the name. Don't worry about the name. But she's a tall blue alien with like tentacles coming out of her head. What I thought was so interesting about her was she was called the diva, but she couldn't be anything but. She was clearly giving up her life for the greater good. She was very soft-spoken. She was very gentle. She didn't seem over the top with her desires or wants. So I thought the whole thing was funny, where I'm like, I wonder if in the future the term diva has another meaning of some kind. Maybe it's a term expressed for like an operatic singer or something like that. But either way, we get that iconic scene when she's doing the insane levels of vocal heights and there's techno music going, and meanwhile Lilo in the background is trying to fight for the stones, and she's getting her own revenge against the butt faces, and everybody's fighting for these stones, and Corbin's having this emotional connective moment with the diva. And this is when we get the big top reveal and when everything kind of pops off, basically. So, unfortunately, the butt faces pop out thinking that they are being under attack. But because they're so dumb, they're just like, we are being attacked by them. And it's like, who's them? Can you clarify them? They don't even know who them is. And they start shooting everybody in the place. Meanwhile, Lilu, unfortunately, when she thinks she has successfully gotten the stones, has to give them up to Zorg, who holds a gun to her, not knowing who she is at all. And she has to run and hide, and he takes the stones and sets a bomb to the place. Like I said, this place is going 0 to 100,000 and never turns down the rest of the movie. And at that moment, while everybody's fighting it out, we just get an amazing... Because keep in mind, Ruby Rhod, when this opera started, is doing like a radio show. So he's like interviewing people, he's being silly, he's still feeling super frustrated with Corbin Dallas not giving him the energy he desires. And when everything pops off and guns start fighting, the entire time Ruby Rhod is just freaking out, high-pitched screaming, punching aliens, cry screaming. It's so good. It's so glorious. Oh, by the way, if you were wondering, that whole bait and switch of like who has the stones, Zorg has the stones, the monster has the stones. No, the diva has the stones. What do I mean by the diva has the stones? This tall, angelic, blue, crazy alien. It makes it seem like no one else looks like her, to be honest with you. I mean, everyone's quite blown away by her spectacle. I mean, I'm surprised she's not the way the Fifth Element would look, if we're being honest here. But she basically, she has the stones literally inside her. Literally. Like, Corbin gives a shit that she dies and has to scoop out her entrails. We just skirt over that because we're like, oh yeah, it's a costume, whatever. There's not a lot of connection. Imagine you care about someone and they die, and then you have to dig out their insides to get what you need. So successfully, Corbin is able to take everyone down. Everything backfires. I think Zorg blows up from his own bomb, ironically, because of the butt faces. The butt faces get revenge. All that good shit. But we're not done yet. We're almost there. So right when they're leaving, and they head back to Earth, they head back to the Egyptian temple where Luke Perry's, Billy was once at. They get there with the stones, with this hilarious hodgepodge team of Ruby Rhod, which, by the way, what's so funny about this is he didn't have to go with them. I hope his, what is it called? Your group of people that you're with is still alive, because I'd be really sad if they weren't. Anyways, he's there with his little light stick. The 2 different priests are there. Lilu's there. Corbin Dallas is there. And I loved that moment, that this is the pinnacle moment where everything's got to go down. And it kind of makes sense that no one really knows what to do. And I thought the priest would know what to do, but it kind of makes sense that, like, that whole whisper down the lane effect, where as you dig deeper and deeper and deeper, like as you tell the information going on, you would like lose some important messages along the way. And one of them being is they're just told you set up the stone and then the fifth element does their thing. They don't know something has to be activated. So eventually we get a cool moment where the understudy priest accidentally activates it through his sigh. And that leads to this beautiful faded moment where everyone's unleashing these stones because they are opened up by the elements they represent. But when cute little Ruby Rod is like, if I had known, I would have never quit smoking. This is one of those little small moments where you only realize after so many times of watching. In the very beginning, we watched Bruce try to light a cigarette to smoke it while he's getting kind of reamed by his mother. And in that moment, he is unable to light it successfully, and he has one more match, but he doesn't in that moment smoke. And so when they need fire, he has literally one match left. He lights it, he puts it on the stone, and everything is activated, and he is trying to wake Lilu up. Keep in mind, now, Lilu, this whole entire time, is a beautiful, whimsical being. She's like, I'll protect you. By the way, love that Corbin never questions, like, can you protect me? What are you? He's always just entrusting of her. A lot of respect levels there. Never questioning her capabilities. She's been a badass. But she's kind of finally... it started to add up. Remember, she's a baby. She's new to this world. The last time humans exist, she didn't really have a lot of interaction with them. She might have done it once and then moved on. We don't really know the schematics to her. Maybe being a fifth element is a reincarnation thing. She dies and gets reincarnated every 5,000 years, and that's the deal. Maybe that's why she doesn't have any recollection of it. But conveniently, I compared this moment to when you are not feeling great and you go on social media and then it gets worse because a lot of things trigger you or sad articles or something. Right at the moment when they're going to the Egyptian temple, she somehow finds the time with gunshots in her tummy or whatever the situation is and looks up the meaning of war. And in this moment, it's so funny and comical how quick it happens, but for whatever reason, you're very convinced and compelled in the moment from the trauma she's just experienced. She makes a good point, like, why would I save life? And not in a mean way, but in a devastated way, out of love and caring. That she's saying, why would I save Earth if they have no, like, look what they do with it. And I want to be like, listen, Layla, we don't have time. We have because they're like 40 seconds until this blob planet consumes Earth. And I was thinking about that. I think the reason why the blob planet wants to consume Earth first is maybe one, in a vengeful spite of where, like, plant and life was kind of most iconically known to come from. So it's a little bit of a petty revenge thing. And the second thing is, if it consumes energy and that grows at a rapid rate, what has more energy than Earth? From the people to the animals to the plants. I mean, a lot of people believe everything has energy, even like wood burning from a cabinet. I mean, like, if it consumed Earth, it would consume the universe in a matter of like 2 minutes, a second, however fast I don't know what its growth rate is, but very quickly. Anyway, so when Lulu's questioning if life should be saved, and she makes a great point about it, and I want to be like, girl, we got 40 seconds, but I don't know how to explain to you that only a few people really control the actions of what happens on Earth, and the rest of us are just pawns to a terrible scheme. So, like, you really need to save everyone else and maybe consider murdering them. She gets convinced by Corbin because he says he loves her. That it's for love. Love's a great reason to do it. And I love that moment because I don't got the vibe that Corbin was ever bitter about love. He just was going through a rough time in life and was just kind of like, whatever, it's just my life, who cares? I'm pretty nonchalant about the whole thing. Gun being held to my face, not a big deal. As long as I can feed my little cute cross-eyed white cat, we're all good here. And he ends up convincing Lilu, and a blast of light shoots through her, and she saves the planet. It's a very quick little moment. So we basically finish off the movie with a cute little sex scene with them in the little revival tank and little sexual indo, and Corbin's mom chews out the president. So Beautifully put. This movie is motherfucking amazing. I love it. I'm very happy with it. You should watch it out too, check it out too. Please consider becoming a Patreon supporter because I have a lot of really cool projects and ideas I'm working on exclusively for that, and I think you should check it out. I think you would really love it. If you love The Fifth Element, you should become a Patreon supporter. And at the minimum, feel free to please subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. Come follow me on Twitter. I love you in the most platonic way. Bye!